How you doing there? Welcome back to Babylon Talmud. Today we're studying Daf Yud Gimel, Daf 13 of Masechta BavaBasra. Friends, one second. What time does it say over there? It says 12:23. What time does it say over here? 12:25. Ooh, okay, it's 2 minutes off. That's good to know. Okay, which means that okay, so I have till 1:06. Okay, yeah. All right, till 1:06. Gewaldig. All right. Well, today, what are we doing today? Okay, I guess like some Erevin-y kind of vibes, but it's interesting stuff. Okay, so today whatever we're doing is, so today's like kind of like an Erevin-y, more of like an Erevin-y kind of day. Like a BavaBasra kind of day, I guess. But at the end, we start getting kind of segueing into our next kind of going to be starting to talk about like Tanakh and like Sifrei Torah, Nevi'im, Ksuvim. We're starting to transition into that in the towards the end of the page, and then tomorrow's daf we're going to be talking about that. So yeah, BavaBasra has been very interesting. Yeah, thankfully so far it has not been brain mush as much as BavaBasra was. BavaBasra was mush. Alright, where are we? When Daf Yud Gimel Aleph, 2 lines into the Amid at the 2 dots, V'loi es atraklin v'chulei. Okay, so we said that by like a palace, whatever. So to divide it up, there has to be a new. What did the Mishnah say? It said, "Was a traklin was a morim, was a shavach was a tal achiheba kidei loze v'chidei loze." That you're only divided up if post division there's enough for both. That if you could divide it up and it retains its name, I don't know, whatever, it's still like a palace, I guess. So then you could divide it up. If not, so then you don't divide it up, you just leave it alone. Okay. So now, so now what happens, if there isn't enough for each? So let's start with the field, it's easiest. Right? So let's say you have a field. So we said in order to divide the field, you have to have 4 amas by 4 amas for each of them. So now what if it's like 7 amas? And you're going to divide it in half, and there would only be 3.5 amas for each, not enough for a shear. So then, or they're not a field, a chutzner. I think I said a field, a chutzner. So then what do you do, Lamaisa? So now what do you do? So listen to this, friends. Listen to this. In one kidei loz v'chidei loz. So what do you do if there's not enough for both of them? Rav Yehuda Omer is dino de good or agud. Rav Nachman Omer leis dino de good or agud. So Rav Yehuda says that there is a this thing called good or agud, which means, sorry, my nose is bothering me like always. I don't know why. Do you always like messing around with your nose because it's like all like itchy and stuff? What do you want me to tell you? Anyways, so Rav Yehuda says that there's this halacha of good or agud, which be'etzim means like, I'll buy you out or you buy me out. Or I think technically fakir. Good, you buy me out, or agud, or I'll buy you out be'etzim, right? I mean, make a price, give me money, buy my portion, or I'll buy your portion. So, right, so if you have like a chutzner that isn't big enough for each of them to have 4 amas by 4 amas, so one of them could say, look, either, you buy me out or I'll buy you out. Rav Nachman though says that we don't say good good, and rather they just keep things as is. Just they stay partners and they don't divide anything up and just leave it as is. All right. So again, in Boyd kidei loz v'chidei lozim, our Rav Yehuda Amar is dino de good or good. There is the halacha of either you buy me out or I'll buy you out. Rav Nachman Amar leis dino de good or good, whereas Rav Nachman says that there is not this halacha of good or good. Rather, what does Rashi say? Leis dino shezeh yochel Amar lo shelcha ekne v'lo sheli emkor. I'm not going to buy yours. I'm not selling you mine. Ela shutfin niye, but we will remain partners in this chotzer or whatever it is. Neither one necessarily has the right to buy the other out. What does Rashi say? In the previous Rashi, Izdin adugud o agud zesherotza lachlok omer lazesh enerotza lachlok o kotz lidam v'knei licha chelki o ani ekotz dam v'etein licha b'chelki choshi efshi b'shutfuscha because I don't want to remain partners. Okay, and then I guess he's entitled to either get bought out or buy the other out. Okay, fine. Okay, fine. Amalei Rav Nachman. So Rav says to Rav Nachman, L'didach, according to the Amat Leis, Dina de good o agud, that there is no halacha of good o agud, so things just stay the way they are. Bechor ufashit. So what if you have, a father passes away and there's two kids? Sheiniach loen avian eved uvehema. Their father left for them an eved or a behema. What are you going to do about that? How are you going to divide up an eved? How are you going to divide up a behema? Or a behema tmeya, like a donkey or something. Ketzad. So what are they going to do? So Rav is saying, you have two brothers. How are they going to divide an eved up? So rather it must be that one of them buys out the other. So it must be that there is the halacha of good or agud. So Amalei Shani Omer. So Rav Nachman says, no. What's the problem? Oved lazeh yom echad, v'lazeh shnei yomim. Right, Ruvain's the bechor, Shimon is the unbechor, is the not bechor. So Shimon will use the eved for one day. Ruvain will then use it for 2 days. Shimon will use it, there's 7 days in a week. One day, of course, is Shabbos, is another 6 days. One day will go to Shimon, 2 days it goes to Ruvain, because of course the bechor gets pishnayim. And then, the next day goes to Shimon, the next 2 days it goes to Ruvain. So kacha, they will divide it up. So what's the big deal? Rab Nachman says we could still say lo amrinun, good or agud, that neither one has the right to buy out the other. Rather, they split up the time, the use. May say. Now we have a kasha on, I believe, Rav Yehuda. Yeah, it's kasha of Yehuda. Rav Yehuda says good or agud. Now we're going to ask a kasha. You have a guy, an Eved Kanaini, and the Eved Kanaini has two adonim, two adons. One of them frees the Eved Kanaini. So now the Eved Kanaini is half Yid, half Eved Kanaini, right? Half of him is owned by his adon, half of him is owned by himself. So what do? So Mishachetzu Eved v'chetzu ben Chorin. Oved is Rabbi Yom Echad v'Tzatzma Yom Echad Divi Basil. So Basil says, the Eved, so one day he works for the Adon, one day he works for himself, the next day he works for the Adon, the day after that he works for himself, etc. So he owns, right, so he's half free, half Eved, so half of his time he's working for his Adon, half the time he's working for himself. Beishami says, Takantem is Rabbi, es Atzma lo Takantem. Beishami says, no. That is not fair to the Eved. The Adon doesn't lose anything, right? Meaning the Adon was a half owner before, and he remains a half owner. Nothing changes for the Adon, and yet for the Eved, everything is horrible now. Lisa Shifcha eno yachol. He can't marry a Shifcha because he's half Jewish now. So he can't. When he was an Eved Knaini, he can marry a Shifcha Knainis. Not anymore. Because he's half Jew. Lisa Bas Chorin eno yachol, and he can't marry a Jewess. Where am I? Okay. And he can't marry a Jewess because he's half Eved. Yivato, so maybe okay, so then just don't get married. The world was created to have babies. You have to get married. Shneimar, the Apostle says, Lo tobura, lo shevis yitzor. I didn't create it to be desolate. I created it to be settled. So Beis Shammai says that, the one day for the Adon, one day for himself, in the big picture, doesn't work. It might work in the sense of who's he working for, but in the sense of he's kind of stuck in the middle. He's half Yid, half Eved, which means he basically can't get married. He's stuck. That is not going to fly. Ella, Kofin, and here's the important part. Actually, it's better to read it with Agos Sabach. B'pnei tikuna olam, kofin es rabo. That rather in the interest of fixing the world, like we learned about Masech Gittin, kofin es rabo, we compel the Adon, the osin oso ben chorin, and the Adon frees the Eved, so that he's completely free now. And of course, though, the Adon is entitled to get paid for his half. So, the Eved is going to have to pay the Adon. But we compel the Adon to free the Eved. And Beis Hillel then agreed with Beis Shammai and says, yeah, that's the correct approach, that we force the Adon to free the Eved, his ownership in the Eved. So now, what's the Shaila? The Shaila is that how is the Eved going free? Because of Tikkun Olam, we force the Adon to free the Eved. Not because of good or good. Not because the Eved has the right, as a partner in himself, right? He owns half of himself and the Adon owns half of himself. So according to Rav Yehuda, there's this halacha of good or good. So shouldn't we apply that here as well and let the Eved go to the Adon and say, I am going to buy my part, right? I'm going to buy the half of me that you own. I'm going to buy it back. But we don't say that. We say that because of Tikkun Olam, we compel the Adon to free him, not because of good or good. So it's a kasha on Rav Yehuda. Because Rav Yehuda would say good or good. Let the Eved say to the Adon, I'm buying myself back now. So answered the Gemara, Shiny ocho de ogud iko good leko. Ho. The Gemara says it's not a good kasha. Because this is not the Chatzi Eved Chatzi Ben Chorin is not a scenario of good or good. It's not a scenario of good or good. It's a scenario of ogud. The Eved can say, I want to buy myself back. It's not a scenario of good. There is not the option of the Adon buying the Eved completely, because that part of the Eved is a Yid. So he would be making an Eved Ivri. An Eved Ivri is not a complete Eved, right? It's only for 6 years. So therefore, right? So the it's not really a scenario of good or there's a good. The Eved could buy his self back, but there's no good. There's no the Adon can't buy the Eved completely because the Eved is already a Yid, the half that's free. So therefore, if Yehuda says don't ask me a kasha from there, because that isn't there's no possibility of good or good. Or really, right, good or whatever. There's no situation of both good and agud there. There's only agud. Weiter. Tashma coming here. Shnei achin. You have two brothers, and the father passes away, and they inherit the father. Echad ani ve'echad asher. One brother is poor, the other is wealthy. V'niach lo navian merchatz uvesabad. And their father bequeathed to them a bathhouse or a olive press. So if they gonna use it, what's the word I'm thinking of? Commercially, okay. If they're gonna make it into a geschäft, so then they'll split the revenues. Ason le'atzmon, right? So split the revenues. Ason le'atzmo. But if they say no, we're not making this into geschäft. We're going to use the bathhouse. We're going to use the olives for ourselves. Hari osher omer lo'oni. So the wealthy one can say to the poor one, Kach l'cha avodim v'yirchatzu b'merchatz. Nu, use the bathhouse. Get the avodim to warm up the water for you, to heat things up, and let them. And use the bathhouse. Go and get olives and use the olive press. And what does Rashi say? That's the important part. Says Rashi, so the point is that the wealthy brother says to the poor brother, go and use the bathhouse, use the olive press. And as Rashi points out, the poor brother can't say to the wealthy brother, kanei chalki, just buy me out, buy my part. So we see that we don't say good or good, but Rav Yehuda answers that also nami, that also in the case of these brothers, good ika agud leka. That again, that's only a situation of good, right? Only the wealthy brother can afford to buy out the poor brother. The poor brother can't afford to buy out the wealthy brother, so it's only good. There's no agud. Okay. Tashma, come and hear. Kol she'ilu yichalik vishmoy olav cholkin. Okay, so we have a brisa that says that if you can divide it up and it retains its name, I guess its function, its use, so then cholkin. So then they would divide it between the partners. Imlav, but if not, malin oso bidamim. Well, then be'etzem, right? Right. If it's not big enough, so then good or good, right? One of them buys out the other. So this sounds like Rav Yehuda and not like Rav Nachman. You have a brisa that says good or good. Tanoi, and for the Gemara it's take a machloikes tanoim about good or good. The Tanya is we learn the brisa told ato shiur va'ani pochis. You hear this? Let's say you have a chotzer that's 7 amas. Right, so divide it up, and each one we get 3.5 amas by 3.5 amas. So that's not big enough. So we say that right that they, so it's not big enough. Okay, so there's a shayla. What do you do? So tol ato shir va'ani pachas. So what if Shimon says to Reuven, you know what? Look, I want to divide. I don't want to sort of keep the status quo. I want to divide this up now. If there was enough room for each of us to get 4 amas by 4 amas, well then that's what we would do. We would divide it up. Each would get 4 amas by 4 amas, and that would be that. You wouldn't be able to stop me. And Shimon says, "Look, I want to break this up. I understand that the chotzer is not big enough for each of us to get 4 amas by 4 amas. But what I'll do is, look, I will guarantee you 4 amas by 4 amas. And if that means that I'm only getting 3 amas by 3 amas, I'm willing to accept that." Okay? So tol ata shir. So if Shimon says to Reuven, look, you take a part of the chotzer that's 4 amas by 4 amas, v'ani pochis, and I'll take less than that. I'll take 3 amas by 3 amas. Shomin lo. So beseder. So we do that. I mean, right. If Reuven, right, what's the difference? Right, if it's big enough for each of them to get 4 amas by 4 amas, so they divide it up. And here Shimon is saying, "Look, Reuven, you'll get 4 amas by 4 amas like you would have if it was big enough, and I'll take less." Right? Shimon says this to Reuven. So why? So Reuven can't argue. What would he argue about? It's not big enough. He's getting the same amount anyways. It's Shimon who's taking the smaller amount, and Shimon's the one who wants to divide it up. So if that's the case, so Shomen lo. So we do that. Reb Shimon Gamliel says Reb Shimon Gamliel ain't Shomen lo. We don't. This does not work. What's the scenario? If it's like we just explained that Shimon is saying to Reuven, "Hey Reuven, take 4 amas by 4 amas. I'll take 3 amas by 3 amas." So then, my time with Reb Shimon Gamliel. Why does Reb Shimon Gamliel say ain't Shomen lo? What's the problem? Shimon wants to divide up the chotzer. He's offering Reuven 4 amas by 4 amas. How could Reuven say no? He's getting a proper share. So rather read it like this: Tol ato shiur va'ani pochis shomen lo. Rather, what the brisa is saying is that if Shimon says to Reuven, "You take 4 amas by 4 amas, and I'll take 3 amas by 3 amas," so shomen lo. So everybody agrees that okay, we divide it up. V'gud o agud nami shomen lo. And says the Tanakama that what else would work? Good o agud. That if Shimon says to Reuven, "Look, I want to divide this up. I understand that it's not big enough for 4 amas by 4 amas. So how about this? Either you buy me out or I'll buy you out." So that also works. But Reb Shimon ben Gamliel Lamemer comes to Shimon ben Gamliel to say, Ein Shomin Lo, that we don't say good or agud. So we see that good or agud is taka machlokas tanoim. The Tanakama says we say good or agud. Reb Shimon ben Gamliel says we don't say good or agud. Lo the olam kidikatani. No, actually, it's like we had taught initially that the chotzer is only big enough. Right, if you divide it in half, each would get 3.5, right, by 3.5. Shimon says to Reuven, look, Reuven, you take 4 amas by 4 amas, I'll take 3 amas by 3 amas. Tanakama says that works. Reb Shimon Gamliel says it doesn't work. Why shouldn't it work? How could Reuven protest? He's getting the same amount he would get anyways. Why wouldn't it work? You know why it wouldn't work? My time to Reb Shimon Gamliel. Why does Reb Shimon Gamliel says that doesn't work? Why would Reuven be able to protest and say I don't want? Mishum do Amarle, because Reuven says to Shimon, Ibidmei leisli dmei lemiten lach. Look, the chatzar is only big enough that each of us can get 3.5 by 3.5. Now you're saying I'll give you 4.5 by 4.5. Now, the thing is, if I could afford to pay you for that extra amount, I would, but I don't have the money. V'matana lo nichali, and I don't want to accept a gift from you. The pasuk says that somebody who hates, who despises gifts, will live. So Reuven says, look, in terms of buying you out, I don't have the money to buy you out. In terms of accepting a gift from you, I don't want to accept the gift. I don't want to accept the gift. So therefore, I don't want to divide it up. And that is why Shimon ben Gamliel says, Reuven doesn't have to divide it up. He doesn't have to accept the gift. If you divide it in half, it's 3.5 by 3.5. That's not big enough to divide up. Shimon wants to divide it up. It's very good for him. Reuven doesn't have to play along. So Abai says to Rav Yosef, Hadu Rav Yehuda Dishmuli. The opinion of Rav Yehuda, good or agud, is taka is in line with his Rebbe Shmuel. Now remember, Rav Nachman was also Talmud of Shmuel, but says Abai to Rav Yosef that Rav Yehuda's opinion is like Shmuel. Wow, it's almost 4 generations. Abai's Rebbe was of Yosef, his Rebbe was of Yehuda, his Rebbe was Shmuel. The Tanan, as we learned in, I guess our Mishnah? Yeah. V'chisve HaKodesh, that when it comes to Tanakh, Aval Pisha Shneim Rotzim Lo Yachloku, that even though both parties want to divide it up, they don't divide it up. Amar Shmuel says Shmuel, Lo Shanu Bekerech Echod. They only said this by one scroll. Aval B'shnei Krichos Cholkin. But 2 scrolls they were divided up. So now, here's the thing. Here's the thing. Here's the thing. Here's the thing. Here is the thing. Here's the thing. Here's the thing. Okay, so basically, right. So the Sifrei Tanakh. So we're talking about all of Tanakh. Okay, the 5 books of Moses, the Nevi'im, the Ksuvim. So when we say, so says Shmuel. So says Shmuel. Lo shadu b'kerech echad. When the Mishnah says that we don't divide up the Tanakh, it's when it's one big scroll. Aval b'shnei krichis. But if you have the 5 books of Moses and then the Nevi'im separately, cholkin, then you would divide that up. V'isal kadaitech leis dina de good o agud. And if you say that Shmuel does not hold of good o agud, ma'irya b'kerech echad afilu b'shnei krichin nami. So now, when you divide up the 2 scrolls, right? So you have the 5 books of Moses, and then you have the Nevi'im. So meaning, so Shmuel said if it's all 1 book, then you don't divide it up, right? If it's 2 books, then you divide 2 scrolls, then you divide it up. The thing is that you have the 5 books of Moses, and then you have, I think it's the 8 books of the prophets. So I think the point is that the prophets would be the more expensive one, and therefore, how can you force them to divide it up? Because one of them is going to have the more kind of valuable one. It must be that, right, that you would say good o good, that the one who has the, I guess, less valuable one would say either you buy me out or I'll buy you out. So again, so ve'i sagadate lays dina to good or good. If you don't hold of good or good, so my iri bekerech echad. Why do you say that only why do you say that only when it's one big scroll do you not divide it up? Afilu b'shnei krichin nami. Even when they're two separate scrolls, you wouldn't divide it up because there's no good or good, and therefore one of them could say, I don't want to divide it up, and that's that. So Tikkum of Shalman b'shneim rotzin. Well, Shalman says that Shmuel is talking about when they both want to divide it up. So that is why they divide it up. But otherwise, we wouldn't be able to necessarily force him to. So it's not necessarily a proof that he holds of good or good. Amar Ameimar, it says Ameimar, Hilchisa, the halacha is dina de good or good. That the halacha is right good or good like Rav Yehuda. Amar Rav Ashi Ameimar, says Rav Ashi Ameimar, Hadra of Nachman, Mai. So Rav Ashi says, Tamemar, what about Rav Nachman? Amalei lo shmirli. Rav Meimar says, I didn't hear it. Klomar lo svirli, meaning I don't hold like that. Vilo, and not, we don't hold of Rav Nachman. V'ha Ravin bar Chinana, Rav Dimi bar Chinana, Shavak lihu avua tarte amhosa. That their father left them two shifchas. Chada yada afio vashule. One of them knew how to cook and to bake. V'chada yada pilcha v'nava. The other knew how to sew and do things like that. So now the thing is, you really need both of them, right? In order to get the full package, right? What happens if the button falls off of your pants? And so you're gonna have to have the. Either you're going to have to do what I did, which was look on YouTube and learn something, or you're going to have to have the shifcha to do it. So, and if you're hungry, you're going to have the shifcha who knows how to cook. So you have to have kind of both of them. But also the kame de Rave, and they came to Rave. V'amarlu, and he said to him, Leis dino the good or agud, that there's no halacha of good or agud. Okay, so therefore I guess that they wouldn't like divide it up and then have this kind of pay for the extra value. So now, so Rava said that leis dina de good or agud. So now, how could a Meimar just say that the halacha is like Rav Yehuda, that good or agud? What about the fact that Rava seems to be paskening that there's no din of good or agud like Rav Nachman? Well, Shani Asim, it's different over there when it comes to the two shifchas. Because each one on their own isn't really enough, right? You need both. You need the sewer and you need the cooker. So you need both of them. So it's not like a scenario where there's like something is objectively like more valuable than the other, right? So it's not like, for example, if you have these two chatzers, right? So you're saying, well, if one of them has the bigger one, it would be more, it would be more valuable. So, buy the other one out. Here you kind of like need both of them. They're both kind of complementary, so you don't say good right? So it's hard to kind of figure out which one's more valuable and who should be sort of compensated for the extra value, because they're both like complementary. So therefore we wouldn't say good. That's why. So good good isn't applicable there. Kika Amar le, where Amar le Tavayu, Lamar le Tavayu. Kika Amar le Shkol at Chada V'ani Chada Lav good good who. And therefore, if one of them takes one of the shifchas, the other one takes the other shifcha, there is no kind of good or agud here, because neither one kind of has like fully what they need. But what about the fact that by kisvei hakodesh, right? If one person takes the right, so Shmuel had said, right? Shmuel had said that when it comes to kisvei hakodesh, you would divide it up. But if it's one scroll, you wouldn't divide it up. But if it's two scrolls, so one of them would get the Torah, the other one would get the Navi. So now those are complementary, right? Neither one is complete without the other, and yet Shmuel seems to be saying that you would divide it up and would say good or good. Shalman bishe ratzu. Well, after all, Shalman said it's because they wanted to divide it up. That's why they would divide it up. Friends, we're going to stop over here, because after this this is going to kind of get started on like a new mahalich. So we're going to stop over here. That was Daf Yud Gimel of Masechta BavaBasra. Interesting daf was this concept of like good or ugly, right? Can one force the other to buy them out, right? So we said if a like chotzer or something is big enough to divide it in half, so then if Shimon wants to divide it up, Reuven can't stop him, they divide it up. What happens in a scenario where it's not big enough? Can one of them, can Shimon offer to buy out Reuven? Say, look, either you buy me out or I buy you out. And does Reuven have to comply or not? Rav Yehuda says yes, good or good is real. And Rav Nachman says no. Peace.